Мороженое купить точно хватит. Так, эту штуку мне не открыли, вот теперь у меня дилемма. Получается, придется сделать такой небольшой крюк, чтобы заехать в сам город, и чтобы мне его открыли. Потому что на самом деле у меня цель-то сейчас, конечно, да, понятное дело, довести этот груз, но еще, черт возьми, не еще, а главная цель — открыть сам город. Чем я сейчас и буду заниматься.
I am here. I'm so sorry. I'm happy to be here, and what a crazy time.
Как же он неудобно расположен, что... Или вернее... Стой! Или вернее, не то чтобы он неудобно, он удобно расположен, а вот чтобы открыть его, это как-то глупо. Я же его уже много раз проезжал. Да ладно, не важно. Так. В любом случае, крюк это небольшой, так что времени на этом теряется совсем чуть-чуть. Как-то раньше, когда было все наоборот, когда это сейчас все почти открыто, а когда было очень мало чего открыто, я этим не заморачивался. И постоянно проезжал этот город. Но сегодня... Да. Сегодня у меня цель была. Именно цель, чтобы его открыть. Что я удачно и сделал. The Democratic nomination in the bag, but make no mistakes. Over the next 4 days, the stars are coming out to play.
Yes, the world is watching what we do. Yes, America's destiny is ours to choose. So let's be stronger together, my fellow Americans.
Justice is not a concept we read about in a book. Justice is about the water we drink. Justice is about how easy it is to vote. Justice is about how much ladies get paid.
If you're a Muslim and you love America and freedom and you hate terror, stay here and help us win and make a future together. We want you.
There is not a black America and a white America and Latino America and Asian America. There's the United States of America.
The world's financial system was on the verge of collapse. Well, we have come a long way in the last 7.5 years, and I thank President Obama and Vice President Biden.
It's about leaving something better for our kids. Folks who volunteer to coach that team, to teach that Sunday school class, because they know it takes a village. People who lined up in Orlando to donate blood because it could have been their son, their daughter in that club.
The big guns are out. Barack on Wednesday, Michelle on Tuesday, Bill Clinton and Jill Biden on Tuesday, Hillary on Wednesday, Elizabeth Warren's there, AOC as well will be talking. So let's get straight down to it. Rachel, what is the point outside of confirming your candidate, which can be a battle? It isn't this year. What is it to set the stall out for everything you ideally as a party want from now until Super Tuesday to be?
Well, I mean, there are formal performance, elements of the convention that the party takes care of. A lot of really boring party business that gets done, the sausage grinding. But in terms of the public elements of the convention, the primetime programming, it is designed to showcase the candidate, and it's kind of like what we would think of as a coming out party for the candidate. It really actually a pretty pivotal part of launching the general election season, especially here in America, where the campaign never seems to end or begin. So that formal, okay, now we're really into the general election period. And it's also a time period where the party begins to present its, the ticket, a unified ticket. Up until that point, it's generally been the nominee. And you hear or know who the vice presidential selection is. They have done or performed the coming out of that and the announcement. But this is the first time that the ticket is really given a trial run. So there's a lot of reasons that the convention has value. But in American politics now, we are living in a time period where polarization isn't just a buzzword. It's an empirical thing. It has empirical impact on a lot of different and all of our political actors. And one of the things that it has done is it has destroyed pretty much this thing called the convention bounce. When Bill Clinton had his convention, he went 16 points up from that convention because it was so well received in the public. And you would just not see a convention bounce like that now because of the inelasticity of American public opinion because of polarization.
Rachel, that noise that we're hearing, that bling, are you playing Sonic the Hedgehog?
Yeah, that's just my Twitter for some reason blowing up. I'm going to get rid of that right now.
Right, I just think it'd be amazing if you could play Sonic the Hedgehog and give such an insightful answer. I love it, Tara.
I'm good at juggling eggs, so.
I want to pick up on something that Rachel said, Tara, about sort of showing this united front. And in the case of the party that's in opposition, there's always a need for it because they've been through this primary, and we just have to look at the vice president.
Ох уж этот высший контроль. Только разгонишься. Хорошо, что в Евро его нет.
You know, they went absolutely at it. We've had Elizabeth Warren be very clear and critical, obviously, in that competitive arena. There is an element there of kind of the United Front is a bit of kissing, making up time.
Yes, and that's kind of been the tradition in American politics. I mean, back in the day when George H.W. Bush went after Ronald Reagan in the 1980 election and said that he was supporting voodoo economics. That was like the big thing back then, which seems like small potatoes compared to being called a racist, basically, which is what Kamala Harris accused Joe Biden of being with the busing and segregation issue that she kind of kneecapped him with. I felt unfairly at the time. So I thought that back then that might be something too difficult to overcome. I think I even wrote a piece for that in CNN that she may have just cost herself the vice presidency because people like Joe Biden, who've been around a while, they respect certain warnings and certain unwritten rules, unspoken rules when you're a gentleman of the Senate that you respect. And she kind of violated that, given that she had also a relationship with his son when they were both attorneys general of their respective states. When Joe Biden was the attorney general in the state of Delaware and she was in California. So I know that it was very hurtful for the Biden family. Jill Biden, Dr. Jill Biden, Joe Biden's wife, said that it felt like a punch in the gut. So the fact that Joe Biden was able to recognize the value that Kamala Harris brought to the ticket and get past that and forgive her for it as just kind of, politicking, and politics ain't beanbags, so you got to toughen up and you take your lumps when they come to you. He showed a certain maturity and said, I think that this would be a historic ticket, that she would be someone that would bring excitement and balance to this ticket, and made the choice. I think a lot of people were shocked that he was able to get past that, but it's that's in the wind now. So the United Front Democrats have forgiven her for whatever she did. It's all about Biden-Harris now, and as of right now, it looks to be a winning ticket, but they cannot rest in their laurels. We're still 77 days away, and anything could happen.
We'll talk a bit more, just 77 days. Wow, I thought it was a bit longer. When you said in days rather than November, it feels a million miles away. So I just got really excited. I might not sleep for 77 days. Right. Drexel, we talk about this healing process after a primary, which can be quite divisive. In this case, there was really big moments. Tara's mentioning that second debate in particular, saw Kamala Harris drop 6 to 9 points after that exchange, and that was probably the end of her run at that moment. But how can they do it? How can they create this momentum on Zoom? For crying out loud. You don't have the Eurovision Song Contest. We have it here, Drexel. And they have to go and get votes on a song contest from every single country in Europe, and it always goes wrong. You go into 57 states and territories. How can they possibly catch that type of momentum and feel-good factor remotely?
Sure, I think, as we've all kind of experienced over these last few months, doing anything virtual is always very challenging. That's just the time that we're in right now, and that's unfortunate. I think what Vice President Biden and Kamala Harris are going to do is they're going to continue to talk about the issues that matter. The Vice President has a platform that not only, and certainly a set of issues that not only that he has put forth, but he has unified the party. He's taken positions from Elizabeth Warren. He's taken positions from Senator Harris. He's taken positions from Bernie Sanders. He's taken positions from Andrew Yang. So all across our party to come up with a platform that's going to work for the American people. I think that's what you're going to see tonight and over the next 4 days through our convention. Excuse me. And that's what they're going to have to do over the next 77 days is make sure that we're talking about those issues. While the president's out there talking about elections being rigged, even though he's the one rigging them, the vice president and Senator Harris are going to go out there and actually talk about the issues that matter to the American people, including rigged elections by this president.
You know, we're going to definitely get on the mail-in votes. That sounds like the least sexy subject to say to British audience, but trust me, it's everything. I just want to check with Drexel, the Andrew Yang policy is adopted. Please tell me it's $1,000 free to everyone in America every month, because that would definitely change it. I'm assuming it's not that one, right?
Well, look, I think that right now Republicans are having a little bit of a harder time just giving $600 a month. So we've got a little bit more of things to do in terms of making sure that there is a way for the American people to maintain their homes, to maintain their families. Excuse me, and make sure that they're ready to get through this pandemic.
Let's give you a little bit of the first speech that we have, the first keynote speech, because Michelle Obama is pre-recorded. I don't know whether Tara, Drexel and Rachel has heard this, but it just popped up on the BBC website about 30 minutes ago, and it's only 33 seconds, but this is what they've released. And here we go. Former First Lady Michelle Obama talking about Joe.
I know Joe. He is a profoundly decent man, guided by faith. He was a terrific vice president. He knows what it takes to rescue an economy, beat back a pandemic, and lead our country. And he listens. He will tell the truth and trust science. He will make smart plans and manage a good team. And he will govern as someone who's lived a life that the rest of us can recognize.
Tara said, Mayor, that will have an effect. That is a very strong endorsement. But is part of the convention avoiding a banana skin, avoiding somebody slipping up, saying the wrong thing, can it backfire a convention, even though it should just be all friendly people in it?
Well, I think that you always run the risk anytime you have a live event. Plagiarized Michelle Obama's speech from, years past, and that was a flap that overshadowed some of the convention hoopla. So, I mean, you always run into the risk of having that whenever there's big production. But I think this time around, it's a lot more controlled. And I really can't imagine that the Democrats would have a slip up that was consequential in any way, unless Joe Biden's speech somehow turns out to be a disaster, which I don't think it will be. But if it did, then maybe, there might be some discussion of that. But for the most part, I think it's going to be pretty well produced. It's unprecedented. The Democrats have contracted out to a Hollywood producer who's done their conventions.
Сделаю одну
It's done,
штуку,
like, the Tony
но
Awards,
для
the
этого я
Oscars, and so they know how to
потом использую
go.
сей флот.
Yeah.
Просто
That's
хочу
interesting.
кое-что
Even though
посмотреть.
it's not live, it's still, you know, it's the wave of the future.
That's really interesting, Rachel, because that it's viewed as that, as a part entertainment event with getting across policies, but making sure it's as slick as an Oscar event. And they bring in celebrity, don't they, Rachel? I think we're looking at Eva Longoria is there, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and they try and get those celebrity endorsements too.
No, it's more than just being able to put a couple of A-listers on your arm. You know, the assets of having all of the intellectual, you know, tech and Hollywood assets. And the Democrats were not, you know, foolish about the approach. They understood that they wouldn't be having an in-person convention months out. So they've been planning this virtual convention the whole time. And as my fellow panelists just pointed out, they brought in top-tier talent to make it as nice as possible. So we should be seeing something that looks, I think, probably really good. And then when we get to the Republican version here here next week, it was something they had to whip together on the fly. And I think that's why the president's so, you know, oh, I need to have this backdrop, because they really aren't going to have the kind of technical expertise behind it. And then, you know, the speech writing and the players that they have to speak are never, especially in the Trump era, not as, I think, to compete in terms of this production value.
Also, be careful what music you use. The last thing you want is a band with 60 gazillion followers in social media tweeting out you're not allowed to use our tune and telling all their fans that they don't agree with the politics. Well, we also,
I mean,
Which has
right?
happened.
If you want to use Hollywood and celebrity music, you know, it's really difficult to do that with a platform that's hostile to minorities and women and groups like that, you know?
Absolutely.
And that happened to Sarah Palin, just really quick, in 2008, because they were using Barracuda for her. That was her alleged nickname in high school when she played basketball. And Heart, the group that sang that, said, stop using our stuff. So it's happening. It's not never look.
Would have been weird if there's other Heart songs like All I Want to Do Is Make Love to You would definitely not work as an anthem for it's a good tune.
I mean, that's like it's not a new problem. There's always been a little bit of tension for big stars like Sammy Davis Jr. who wanted to go perform for Nixon or what have you. But this divide in the entertainment industry and the current modern Republican Party is much more pronounced, where they really cannot find anybody but Chuck Norris and the Pillow Guy to come hang out with them.
Так,
And Scott Baio.
Yeah. There's always the moments as well. We're talking about a 77-year-old and a 74-year-old, and they always try this thing around about convention time. They'll do something, an interview with somebody way cooler and younger than themselves. In this case, Cardi B and Joe Biden did an interview together. We find out
доберемся
Joey B.
сюда, там
You're
посмотрим.
just waiting. That's no question. I'm just saying, Drexel, you just wait for the cringe moment when those interviews. You always think, who's advising that? I'm not sure it's good, Drexel.
You know,
Да, с DRG сегодня уже не получится. Потому что я вроде как их планировал, но времени на это уже не хватит.
You know, I don't think that we're going to... I'm normally not a loss for words, and Colin knows that, but I think that, you know,
Времени на это уже не хватит, но это не страшно, потому что сделаю то, что я задумал в следующий раз. А American я сегодня посвящу немного больше времени. Зато открою уже наконец все города. Ну, из тех, из основной и из тех DLC, что у меня уже есть. Конечно. конечно же.
Is there, do you have
У меня
little-
точно нет
with-
Юты.
within American
О, как
politics,
красиво.
American politics, do you have little bets on the side of how many times Joe Biden's going to say "Come on, man" in any
Oh, yeah.
speech?
Oh, да.
Because it's you
Yes.
know, with all the best will, every time he does it, I'm like, you need to stop saying "Come on, man" every time you got to make a point. It's getting, it's
I gotta
not.
say,
You don't think we have shot games already prepared for that? Is it shots
Do not,
already-
for everyone listening now.
something that Joe Biden does that annoys me after like this time period with Trump, though, like literally there's nothing that he can do. Like everything he does is hearing, I'm like, you know what I mean? And then like you think about Michelle Obama's like that little segment from her speech, it was astounding to me, right? Like here's Michelle and she's making this endorsement speech for Biden, and he's a former vice president, long-term senator, and like, basically she's like, Joe's a nice guy, he's gonna listen to science, he's gonna do the job. Like that's where
But that's where we're at. But that's where we're at, though.
I know.
You know what I mean? That country is so starving for normal and intelligence that just the fact that Joe Biden is a good and decent human being, unlike the sociopath narcissist we have right now in the White House, is something that I think people should just like, look, he's a good guy. And, and yeah, look, Joe Biden's gap prone. He knows he's gap prone. That's been a thing in his whole career, and people just say, oh, that's just Uncle Joe. And that actually makes it relatable for a lot of people. I think that they can look past those things and just go, oh, that's just Uncle Joe being Uncle Joe. But he's not a government, right? He has experience in government. He's the vice president, heartbeat away from the presidency for 8 years. He knows what he's doing on day one, and that's what this country needs. And I think that that's the message that you're going to hear coming out of the DNC this entire week.
Just come to you in a second, Rex. It's the perfect time for me to say, listening to BBC Radio 5 live, and this time next week we'll be building up to the Republican convention. So anyway, it'll sound very different than this chat. Drexel, off you go.
Sorry, I just wanted to echo a little bit what Tara was saying, just about the fact that, that's what makes Joe Biden so relatable. And I think over the past, presidencies, with the exception of one in between, I think that there have been kind of this idea of whether or not you believe it, of kind of elitism. And I think Joe Biden and Senator Harris bring kind of that hometown, relatability to that. And I think that's what voters saw, when President Obama, at least first-term President Obama, at least leading up to that election, was a very relatable person. And then people tried to turn the tables on him, call him an academic after that because he got professorial in the job. And in this case, Joe Biden has always been relatable. Senator Harris, listen, I'm from Los Angeles. I've met with the senator before. She is one of the most relatable people and down to earth. And that's exactly what voters are going to see and what voters have seen from Senator Harris since she came on the national stage.
Without doubt, they'll be the two most important moments of the next 4 days of the Democratic convention. But I want to throw two final names out and we'll move on to those bigger issues and how Joe Biden will be painted by Donald Trump, how he is being painted, mail-in votes and those other issues. But throw this around between. I'll start with Tara and you can just throw it around between you because it's not unique, but it is fairly rare to have somebody in the opposition party speaking at the convention of their rivals. But in this case, Ohio Governor John Kasich, who is a Trump critic and a moderate conservative, will be speaking. I'll start with Tara, your thoughts now, and just throw it around between you.
Yeah, so I've actually been to every Republican convention since 1996. And I actually worked on that convention behind the scenes. I've lived in San Diego where it was for the summer. So there's a lot of planning that goes into this. And who is selected to speak is one of those are the most coveted spots. When they speak, for how long, prime time. So that there's a very deliberative process that goes into who was featured during a convention. The fact that John Kasich was just that the decision was made that he would be allowed to speak and that he was willing to do it, I thought was fantastic. Because John Kasich isn't the only Republican that's speaking. You also have 3 Republican women. Former Congresswoman Susan Molinari, who was a rising star in the 90s, Hochman from my home state of New Jersey. She's speaking, as well as Meg Whitman, who ran for Senate, Senator Governor in California, I forget now. But she is, when it comes to corporate America, ran as a Republican. They have made the decision to cross the aisle and talk about the importance of what brings us together as Americans versus partisanship. It's so important in this election because of how tribal Donald Trump and his followers have become and have made the Republican Party, that the adults in the room that may have an R next to their name have decided that it's more important to show unification behind the common messages that make us America than it is for partisan loyalty. It is literally country over party, and I'm thrilled to see that they've made the decision and that the DNC had enough sense to allow them to do it, because you're going to need those people who are that held their nose and voted for Trump in 2016, that want to see that it's okay for them to say, to reject Donald Trump and the Republicans and vote Democrat this time around. They're just kind of looking for that okay. And seeing Senator Kasich and the others, especially for women, speak at the DNC sends a really powerful message.
Yeah, and I'm going to pick up too. And Tara, it's you, Tara. I didn't know it was you, Tara, until 5 minutes ago. And,
for goodness sake, why don't you Rachel? Because there's no other Rachel.
I didn't have time. I was putting out a survey for rural Pennsylvania voters on the mail issue tomorrow. So that's my excuses. All right. Anywho, yes, but now I know you because you're so brilliant. I was like, oh, that's Tara.
Just before you say that, Rachel and I both serve as senior advisors for the Lincoln Project, which, if you're following American politics, I'm sure you've heard of us and what we're doing with putting out ads and really hitting Donald Trump to try to get him out. And it was formed by former Republican consultants and Republicans that have had enough. So Rachel and I are senior advisors together on the Lincoln Project, so that's why she's like, oh, it's that Tara.
Yeah,
there's only one.
Catch that. And I'm the only non-Republican on there, but just so for context. But yeah, I love her. Anyway, so she's absolutely right. If you're the DNC, you want to be able to put someone like John Kasich on the stage in a primetime speaking spot in a situation like we have right now. Okay, because we have this pandemic scenario. Prior to the pandemic, we didn't really have a lot of opportunity for. It was going to be a battle of the faces kind of election. But now with this pandemic, Trump has screwed it up so extraordinarily bad. America is basically a giant leper colony. We can't even go anywhere. We're banned from the entire world. America is. And it has really opened up an opportunity. It's really pulled the wool off of a lot of voters' eyes. And so it's very shrewd of the Democrats to recognize putting Kasich on that stage is a way to indicate, hey, we are a big tent party, especially because it's coming as a bookshelf move with the Harris VP nomination, because Harris is not a traditional Democratic VP nomination. Democrats have a long history of nominating the most centrist, frankly, bland VP candidate they can think of. Whereas Republicans tend to go with a base, attracting somebody who's attractive to the Republican base. And this is the first time that Democrats have ever done the Republican strategy. So actually, these two activities coming so close together, the Harris nomination and Kasich on the DNC stage, are going to be very, very nice in terms of the symbolism of the big tent and really painting this picture to, America, hey, you have one party here that has this big tent that is welcoming both John Kasich and, nominating a female presidential bid. So I think it was a very shrewd and very smart move for them to do.
I just want to apologise for butchering John Kasich's name massively, by the way. I couldn't have got it more long if I tried. It was hardly even
That's all right.
letters, but listen,
when you have that British accent, you can do whatever you want,
Yeah, well,
I agree.
Okay, that's I'm a bit speechless after that. Listen, I don't mean to throw this on you, but we are the BBC and we have a far-reaching net here, and we do have It's just dropped right now. This is an exclusive preview of a pre-recorded Joe Biden speech. Come on, man. Come on, man. Come on, man.
My heart race. Come on, man. Come on, man. Let's do it.
Come on, man. Come on, man. Oh, come on, man. It's like you just said, relatable, right?
Come on, man.
Come on, man.
That Capitol Hill standards would all be drunk by now. That's a 16 shot throw. Thank you very much.
I love the fact that there's...
This I can tell you. This I can tell you. This I can tell you.
I love the fact there is a come on man drink the game. You've revealed it now, I know it. Right, for everyone just tuning in, we've been talking for over half an hour. Let me just tell you who's with us. I've went with American football this time. Our quarterback is former Republican Communications Director, game writer and TV pundit that gets asked on Fox News and NBC. Tara Setmire is here. Tara, hello.
Hello.
Just you see.
I have to it's not Fox News. It's CNN and ABC.
But you've been on everything on your CV.
Over the years, but
Yeah, that
recently.
counts, that's still.
I'm exclusively under contract, so
Oh, wow.
I'm Fox. Thanks, people. About that. But some of the Fox stuff is not there anymore.
Not now.
Oh, yeah, the Fox never called me, but I imagine in 2022 they might be calling.
That is her tight end, Rachel Beckhofer. She's an official political scientist. I love that one, political scientist. It just sounds better than anything else you can say. An ace predictor of modern elections we'll get on to in a second. And our friend of the show is here, our tight end, political analyst who worked on the Obama campaigns. And I think he acts as well, unless I've dreamt that. Drexel Herder-Sex here. Is that true, Drexel? Do you act as well?
I used to, but politics and theater go hand in hand. So here we are.
Don't give up the dream.
Right now, I not only do this, but I'm also the executive director of the Los Angeles County Democratic Party. So that's what I actually do right now. So
right, let's give the choice to Rachel. Do you want to talk about Kamala Harris, or do you want to talk about the whole fuss about mail-in votes and USPS or auspice? Do you want to call it? Which one of the two do you want to talk about?
Oh, gosh, I'm going with, I don't know, deferring to Harrison.
is this a drinking game?
No, it's a late night conversation where I am. So I want. It's like, which one do you like right now? I want to talk about. Which one? Okay, Tara, what do you want to go first? Should we do mail-in votes?
Let's talk about
Okay. Let's explain this because, as I said earlier.
If I have that salty survey, I can tease you guys with. if you're living in rural
question the integrity of the results of the election is just the audacity of it is mind-boggling. Do they honestly think that no one is going to win this? Hundreds of thousands of people are employed by the post office. The postal service has been around since Benjamin Franklin was our first postmaster general. The postal service is as old as America itself, and the idea that the president would politicize the post office is really unpalatable for a lot of people, and it impacts his own people. I think this is extreme overreach on their part. They're going to regret that they ever messed with the post office. It impacts veterans. Our veterans who go through the VA for their medicines depend on the postal services to deliver their prescriptions. This president tries to brag about how much he loves the veterans and our military and how he's helped to fix the VA problems, and which is a bunch of nonsense. So here he is crippling the most important delivery system for wounded veterans to get their medications. It's ridiculous. The other thing too that they're doing, which is something that a lot of people have never seen before, is they're actually putting locks on mailboxes. I have never seen anything like that before. There are actual locks on our mailboxes in our communities to stop people from depositing mail in them. So people are taking pictures of this, posting it on social media. It's going all around, and members of Congress, and I'm glad that Rachel did a survey on this, because the only thing that moves politicians is a threat to their power. So if they see that their constituents are really upset about this, it's going to be a political issue for them come November, you best believe that Republicans are going to get together and go to Trump or go to someone who's babysitting him in the White House and say, get the boss to cut this out, because this is going to cost us seats in the election. The Senate is already vulnerable because of his behavior. So this is a huge issue. It's a national emergency, and the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, is calling the House back into session so that they can start to address this and have hearings on it.
Yeah, she's starting to do that. It doesn't sound like a vote winner, but Drexel heard the second Bernie Sanders describes it as a vote suppressor, and that's exactly what's behind it, in his opinion.
And Senator Sanders is absolutely right. As was said, the House of Representatives is going to be doing hearings this weekend. They're bringing in some folks from USPS to answer those questions. People want to know, and I think that Republicans have done, and not the ones on this call, but Republicans certainly have done their fair share of voter suppression over these past few years, whether or not it's in states like Georgia or across the country. They know that they have no record to run on, so they have to do whatever they need to do to win. And in this case, it is making sure that the American people cannot exercise their right to vote. And that's exactly what they've been doing over these past few years. So it has not started with this president. This president is they are just a part this president is certainly a part of an ongoing problem that Republicans certainly have put our country in our democracy in jeopardy over these past few years.
Tara Drexel, Rachel, stay with me for just a minute. The absolutely fantastic Dalton Adebayo follows me in about 14 minutes from now. Dalton, I missed you the last 2 weeks.
I've missed you as well. I've missed Drexel as well. You know, we go back. In fact, I was listening to what you were saying about you going for the American football theme this morning. We're going for the old school soccer, as Americans call it, theme. So centre forward for the World Football Voting tonight. Well, not so much centre forward. He's more like an old-fashioned Brazilian number 10, is the Legendino Tim Vickery, of course. And we've got as well. We've gone for the whole rugby tight end. Is that what you call it? Tight end, yeah. Well, we've gone for the tight end.
Prop, if it's rugby.
Yeah, we usually call it squeaky bum tight end over this side. And what we've gone for is old rugby man, but he's coming in for defence. So we're going to use him as both left, right and central defence tonight. And we're talking, amongst other things, about great footballing U-turns. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Great footballing U-turn.
Yeah, well, the government's done something of a U-turn tonight, so we thought we'd go for that. And you can
think of a footballing U-turn. Well, you mean when a player stays after he says he's going to leave?
You could go that way, or a club decides to bring back a player. Paul Pogba went off to Italy, and then Manchester United realised what they had and asked him. It did a U-turn. Or of course, you could go for the Johan Cruyff U-turn. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Here's one for you. Less of a U-turn and more of a screeching halt. Don Revie back in the day managing Leeds United. I'll tell you very quick. He's got big issue to talk about. Don Revie back in the day's interview Leeds United. Bus breaks down, going down an away game, a mile from the ground. They have to walk through the fans, getting all sorts shouted at them. They win the game. He's deeply superstitious, so every away game, every road trip after that, he parks the bus a mile away from the ground and makes them walk through all the abuse. And they had a run of like 8 games in a row where they won away, and he kept doing it until they lost. So less of a U-turn and more of a pull into LA.
That fact, our American guests have no idea what we're talking about. But
that's why I said road trip. I was trying to involve them. Done my best there. Done my best.
Colin, I love the way you do this, mate. And I love that Joe Biden montage as well. What was he saying?
Come on, man. He says it. And we find out that many nights Tara's had to take a taxi home after listening to some of the drinking games we've been hearing about. It's crazy. Thank you, Dalton. Speak to you soon.
Look forward to it.
Let me go off piste here and just you set stuff up that you're going to talk about, but just listening to some of the things that Tara was talking about and Rachel was talking about in particular. And I'll start with Tara. Why in 2020 is Kamala Harris only the third woman ever to be handed a vice presidential ticket?
Well, sometimes progress is slow. Did you want to go first, Rachel?
I was so excited to be like, well, that's because we are, super misogynistic. You know?
Right. Because this is why I bring it up. This is not a Democratic thing. This is not a Republican thing. This is when the decision, and it's a decision that's made. This is not a voting thing either. This is not saying, well, hold on, all the candidates are there and you vote for who you want to run as president. This is a decision that's made within the party based on strategy. And it seems unthinkable that that's only the third time. I don't mind who starts.
Our Congress is 75% male.
Yeah.
Right? In 2020. After a historic wave of female, candidates won, and it was, they all stood on the stairs with Nancy Pelosi, and it was the pink wave.
Right.
Still 75% male. You know what I mean?
But there's another part of that too, though, because it's women haven't had the same go through the same pipelines as men to run for office. You have to convince women to do that.
Right.
Traditionally women have been, if they have kids or they're at home and they decide to, raise their kids and things, and that's not considered the traditional pipeline to getting into politics over the years. It was seen as a man's game.
I'll tell you the other reason,
but that's changed now, actually.
Yeah, one of the main reasons is that Republicans had always lagged behind, but the entire female representation portion of the Republican Party has been wiped out in the last decade. So where we would have actually been, I don't want to quite pull it up to like 40, but we probably would have been at 35% if the Republican Party had not lost almost all of its gender diversity. In the same time period that the Democrats finally gained steam, almost all of the gender diversity has been wiped out of that Republican caucus. And so that's why we keep making all this progress. It doesn't translate into that overall pie increasing. But, Tara's right. There's, lots of research as to why? Well, the pipelines have taken a long time to diversify. So those state legislative and mayoral and the things that feed the feeder offices. But, the fact of the matter is, the Citizens United decision is also going to have long-term impacts for women and candidates of color and candidates from any background that's not something wealthy with family money, because it is so freaking expensive to run for office that even though the Republican Party is literally dying to get women to run, when a woman comes to them and she's attractive and she's got all these great assets, but she has no money, and a man comes that has a big ass Rolodex, they have to go with the Rolodex guy because it costs so much money now to run for office. You can't give preference to diversity over money. These races are so much to bankrupt now, and so we have a lot of different mechanisms that are depressing diversity and gender and racial diversity.
It's a great answer, and it's so nuanced and it's so complex, but you look at the difference between an increase and smashing the windows, and maybe as a policy, maybe in 2020 for, say, the Democratic Party to say, Drexel, if we nominate a female presidential nominee, if our candidate is female, our vice president will be male, and if our presidential nomination is male, by default, our vice presidential nomination from now on will always be female. We will always have gender equality on our ticket. That, Drexel, I don't think that's that big a I think that's a gesture that changes so many things, and it's a simple one, and is one that makes sense as well when you look at the voting landscape. It makes sense for a lot of reasons, but that's a proper commitment to gender equality.
Well, look, I think that's a really loaded question. However, I think that
thank you, Drexel.
I think that what we've seen over historically, there have been two men on a ticket. That is not to say that at some point, yes, gender equality is always something that everyone strives for. But however, down the line, there's so many more well-qualified women who will run and will win and will become president in our lifetime that may or may not be on a ticket together. And that's just something that people, I think, should prepare themselves. Then that's what we're going to do.
I didn't mean to ask you a little question, Drexel. I was use a friend. I was just spitballing. I was just blue sky thinking. I think sometimes it's good to have a conversation about something that's just an idea that can be flawed, especially when it comes to equality. It's just to throw it out there and bang it about.
I think it is. I think what we saw, what Sarah Palin went through, what Geraldine Ferraro went through. What Shirley Chisholm went through, what Hillary Clinton went through, those are things that are not going to stop for a long time. Misogyny in America is not going to be something that is going to be eradicated in the next decade. What we can do is make sure that the American people know that we will make sure that we are protecting our candidates and backing our candidates no matter who they are. And I think that if if we can do that, then it doesn't matter who's at the top and who's at the bottom of the ticket. Because that's exactly where we are.
There's an issue we could do an extra hour on if we only had 3 minutes left of the show. We could talk about men actually doing the work to make that change. Instead of talking, do the work. Right. Fun question finish. We're walking out the speed, right? We're in our dream world. We've all just been nominated. We are given a speech. We've been given a speech. What track are you going to walk out to? What is your song that you would walk out to? Now, just straight away, one of you went, boom, I know what the track is. One of you just...
For ourselves or for someone else?
No, for yourselves. What's your song you walk out to? It tells me everything about you. I'm not going to vote for you, Rachel, if I don't like the song.
Roar, Katy Perry.
Oh, that amazing tune. I love that. It's on my playlist at the gym. That's a weird song to have. What a great idea. Right, okay, Roar, Katy Perry. Very good. Tara Drexel, the bar's been set high. We've had the Perry.
Oh, man, that go ahead, Tara. You first.
Well, I would walk out.
Oh my, what a shout that is, by the way. What a shout. Freedom, I won't let you down. That's everything. Why is that not happening tonight?
No one ever impresses me. That I'm impressed.
Now that is a loaded question. That is a loaded question. Can you think better than that?
That is a loaded question. I think that I can speak to the freedom realm, let's say Freedom by Beyonce, and make that a walkout song.
Brilliant. Well, listen, Barack Obama has marked the Democratic Convention by doing this. Have a listen. So, what a tune this is, by the way. What a song this is. Now, here we go. Bit of John Coltrane, if you like your jazz, as I do, and O'Donnell likes a bit of jazz. Here we go. Oh my God, yeah, of course.
You know you're cool if you're cool and you wear mom jeans and you're still cool. You know what I'm saying?
On that bombshell, we're out of time. Drexel, Rachel, that was your first ever Midnight in America. I hope it was okay for you, and thank you so much for giving us so much of your time. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. What about that from Tara? Freedom, I won't let you down. George Michael as a walk out of the convention. I'm voting for what she had to say and her music that she chose. Right, 3 great guests. That's Midnight in America. Next Monday, it's the Republican convention. We'll do that. Dutton's up next. Whatever you're doing this evening, whatever has you up this late, I wish you all the best and all the love. I'll see you back here tomorrow at 10:30.
On digital, BBC Sounds, smart speaker and online.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
With the BBC News at 1 o'clock, this is Jason Kemp. The Education Secretary Gavin Williamson has admitted the algorithm used to calculate A-level results in England produced significant inconsistencies, so pupils will be able to keep the grades predicted by their teachers. Mr. Williamson has apologised for any distress caused. The U-turn means that considerably more students attained the top grades, putting severe pressure on universities whose offers assume that more candidates won't achieve the required results. Professor Mark Fellows from the University of Reading says it's unlikely that every student will be able to take their first choice course despite the change.
We certainly will do our absolute best to get every student who applied to us who wants to come to Reading. We will do our absolute utmost best to get them a place. So there's a commitment there. Across the whole sector, though, there are bound to be subject areas where there's simple issues of capacity. And so I don't think anybody could possibly guarantee that every student will get the place that they wanted.
Labour has been calling for teachers' grades to be used since last Friday, but the Shadow Employment Minister Seema Malhotra accepted that many questions remained.
What's going to happen to those students who missed out on their offers last week, but now might be in a place to have those offers? What's going to happen to those who have gone through clearing, and how are we going to think through what happens now with the consequences for next year? It is clear that this is a crisis that was of the government's own making. They knew that this was coming, and what is important is that we get clarity on those questions and we get them in days, not weeks.
The government will outline plans in the morning to create a new health protection agency which will take over many of the functions of Public Health England, one of the organisations at the heart of the response to the coronavirus crisis. Many of the agency's functions will be transferred to a new body led by Lady Harding, who's currently in charge of the NHS Test and Trace programme. Public Health England has faced criticism over its handling of the pandemic, but some argue that the government's made it a scapegoat. A woman's appeared before magistrates in West London, charged with murdering her 10-year-old son. Olga Freeman was remanded in custody and will appear at the Old Bailey on Wednesday. Democrats in the United States are preparing to open their convention at which Joe Biden will be formally selected as their candidate for November's presidential election. Most of the delegates won't be at the venue in Milwaukee in the state of Wisconsin, and speeches will be made virtually to observe social distancing. Our correspondent David Grossman is at a Donald Trump rally a few miles away.
He's trying to make out, he's trying to project the idea in Americans' minds that the Democrats are trying to ramp up the risk of this coronavirus pandemic in order to make them look bad before the election. So he's flown in about 75 miles north of Milwaukee, where the Democrats are supposed to be having a convention, and we have him having a rally, and they're not.
Scientists believe Death Valley in California has registered the highest temperature ever recorded on Earth. The automated weather station in Furnace Creek measured 54.4 Celsius, nearly half a degree higher than the previous reliable record. And that's the BBC News at 3 minutes past 1.
Available now on BBC Sounds.
In the Greatest Fights podcast, Steve Bunce and I watch classic bouts in the company of some of the biggest names in boxing. A series of history-making showdowns, occasions when reputations were made on nights never to be forgotten. Alongside Sugar Ray Leonard, we relive his monumental first fight against Tommy Hearns. Evander Holyfield explains to us what was going through his mind against Mike Tyson in the infamous bite fight, and we hear the likes of Ricky Hatton recalling every high, every low in his unforgettable battle against Kostya Tszyu.
The Greatest Fights podcast with Mike Costello and Steve Bunce.
Listen now on BBC Sounds.
This is BBC 5 Live. Call free 08085 909 693. Text 85058. Text will be charged at your standard message rate. Plus, see our privacy notice. bbc.co.uk/5live.
Across the UK.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live with Dotun Adebayo.
Real Sounds of Africa there to once again kick off another edition of this wonderful nightclub that everybody's invited to. I'm Dotun Adebayo, and tonight the nightclub features the World Football Phone-In. So, of course, we want to hear from you about footballing matters, but we're still taking your calls on the big news stories of the day, and there's nothing bigger at the moment than exam results. 08085 909-693. The government has U-turned. I think it's fair to say. Certainly all the... The Guardian... and 693. A-level and GCSE students in England will be given grades estimated by their teachers rather than by an algorithm. And this follows the uproar after about 40% of A-level results were downgraded by exams regulators Ofqual, which use a formula based on schools' prior grades. So we want your calls on this tonight, amongst other things as well. 08085 909 693. You can text us on 85058 or tweet at BBC5 Live. And since this is the World Football Phone-In, we're talking about this through the prism of football. So I'd like you to recommend your favourite or most memorable footballing U-turns. What are the greatest U-turns in football? 08085 909 693. So we're talking about footballing U-turns. Let's have a listen.
Cruyff. Oh, he left it for dead.
Yeah, Johan Cruyff. We did our best there. Johan Cruyff in the 24th minute of the game, Netherlands against Sweden in the group stage of the 1974 World Cup. And there are other U-turns. Take it in whatever sense you want. Arguably, Manchester United U-turned on Paul Pogba when they released him to Italy and then brought him back for a lot more money. It's something of a U-turn. You can take it wherever you want to. 08085 909 693. So we're talking U-turns. We're going to have a lot of fun tonight. You can text me on 85058 or you can email Dotun, D-O-T-U-N, at bbc.co.uk. But first, this wouldn't be the World Football Phone-Ins Club night if we didn't have the legendino, Tim Vickery in Rio. Good morning, Tim.
Very good morning. I was just thinking there where you were talking away that if the Champions League scores had been done by algorithms, then Man City would be facing Bayern Munich in Wednesday's semi-final. Long live the rhythm of real life. Down with the algorithm.
Okay. A very good point, actually. And we want to talk about Champions League results as well. Didn't favour the English clubs whatsoever. But let's start talking about U-turns. Now, as soon as this government U-turn on A-level and GCSE results, which is a million miles away from where you are, I get that. And we'll talk about the Brazilian experience, the South American experience of, and what to do about education post-coronavirus or during this coronavirus crisis. But in terms of footballing U-turns, remember you can take it U-turns on the pitch or off the pitch. Which is the first one that comes to mind for you?
Denmark in the Euros in 1992 because they couldn't go to the tournament because they didn't qualify. So they're on the beach. They got knocked out. They didn't qualify. Who qualified in their group was you?
They're not Scottish. If it was Denmark,
no, but a lot of them go over there.
I'll have to do it in Swedish because I don't have the data. Vi kvalificerade inte. Sorry, just for our Danish audience, so that you know what you mean.
9 minutes. I think you've broken your own record there. Congratulations. Because Denmark didn't qualify, or however when you say that, in whichever language you want to come up with. Yugoslavia qualified, but then Yugoslavia was disintegrating exactly at that moment. Yugoslavia, as it didn't exist as a country anymore, weren't allowed to play in Euro 92. So Denmark got off the beach, went to the tournament, and won it.
Yeah, I did that. Why was that a U-turn? Why was that a U-turn?
Because they hadn't qualified. So they're going, everyone else is preparing, Denmark are going to the beach. And then suddenly, instead of like enjoying yourself on the beach, instead of that, turn yourself around in a U direction, go to Sweden, where that tournament was held. You've got 10 minutes and you've got every chance to score your second goal. They ended up winning. So they're going in one direction to the beach, they ended up going the other direction, back to Sweden and winning the tournament that they hadn't even qualified for.
Oh Tim. 10 minutes into the conversation, World Football Phone-In Club Night conversation, and you didn't even think of the original footballing U-turn that you've told us so much about. You've lost your opportunity to talk about the bicycle kick. Don't worry. We'll come back.
I've got another one. Hang on. I've got another
You're
one.
trying to redeem yourself.
Yeah. To be made, which is at the end of the First World War, Arsenal had been relegated from the First Division, as the Premier League was then called. They had been relegated. They should have gone down to the... Well, they had been, so they should have gone down to the Second Division. But as there'd been this break for the war, it went to the votes, and all the clubs could vote. And Arsenal obviously lobbied so successfully that their place was restored in the top flight English level, where they've been ever since. So they should have gone down, and because they managed to lobby successfully, they went in the other direction, stayed in the top flight. We still have to put up with them to this day.
Tim. 11 minutes.
True story.
I know, I'm just Tim. 11 minutes into the World Football.
And that's even before a Swede like Anders Limpar played for them.
Don't let it go. 11 minutes into World Football Phoning, and he has already ignited that old school rivalry between his lot, the Spuds, and the other lot of North London. 08085 909 693. Let's get on with this. Let's kick off. Look, we've got with us our very own Mark Machado, who does our sporting roundup of a weekend every Friday morning. Mark, good morning.
Morning, Dot, and morning, Tim. How are you both doing today?
Doing very well. We're talking about footballing U-turns. First one that comes to mind for you?
The first one that came to mind for me was David Seaman in 2002 World Cup making a U-turn when he couldn't see that ball quite going over his head. Was it Ronaldinho knocked England out of the World Cup, which was a terrible shame there. The second one that came to my mind, and I know Tim knows a lot more about this than I do, is England decided that actually they want to play in the World Cups in 1950, and then making a U-turn to get in the World Cup, and then making a swift U-turn to get back home, because they didn't last very long, did they?
Okay, and the reason we're talking about U-turns is the government, as you know, is under an almighty U-turn. I'm not even sure if they can wriggle their way out of that expression in this regard. Because just a couple of days ago they were saying, U-turn if you want to. This bloke ain't concerning, to misquote them. And now they've decided that O-levels and GCSE, I keep calling it O-levels, old school O-levels. Same thing, same difference as we used to say. So they've decided that GCSE and A-level results this year will be predicated not on an algorithm, as they had stated their entire sort of, how should I put this? They'd state, I think they state their reputation, I think it's fair to say, on an algorithm in terms of education medication. It's not going to be based on that. It's going to be based upon the assessments by teachers in their mock exams. So a lot of students who wouldn't have had a place in their first choice universities are going to get that place. I want to talk to you about that. Feel free to use the prism of football to talk about the U-turn that the government's made, or if you like, feel free to talk about football through the prism of the U-turn that the government's made. The government is at the centre of all this conversation. So we've got the Legendino in Rio. We've got Mark needs a Brazilian shirt name. We'll come to that in just a moment or two. And of course, this wouldn't be the World Football Phone-In without our leader, the gent in Orpington, in Kent. Gent, good morning.
Good morning to everyone else. Doctor, before I ask a proper question on football, and I can give you a U-turn as well, may I please spend a moment or two thanking you for visiting me on Friday. I told you I was in isolation. I'm not allowed to go anywhere because because of my age and a heart condition. And they told me if I were to catch the virus, I would be 70 times more likely to kick the bucket than anybody else. So you very kindly visited me. You offered some lovely food to eat. We did isolate. We did sit in my garden around the table, and I'm so grateful to you, and I did enjoy what you brought me did. So thank you very much indeed for that.
And did I not ask you not to mention this when you go onto the World Football Phone-In? Now that you've mentioned that, I'm duty bound to also add that even though I cycled some of the way there, you then offered to come and pick me up at the railway station.
You're a friend.
You're supposed isolation.
I know, yeah, I have.
How can you pick me up for the...
I haven't seen anybody listen, whatever it is, my family do the shopping for me, leave it on the front doorstep, I pick it up, and I sit there, as I told you, the only thing I've got to talk to is the wall opposite. The wall never argues, never disagrees with me.
That's
so,
what,
you know.
that's what Bruce Lee said. Do you remember in Enter the Dragon when Mr. Handman went and showed his... Yeah, was it Mr. Handman? I think it was Mr. Handman when he showed his kung fu skills and just knocking down a wall. And then Bruce Lee said, walls don't argue. And you've just said a similar thing. Jen, I know you're going to talk about football in a moment, and I think there's one name that's going to feature very prominently in your conversation. Let me just give listeners a clue. Those who know you will